good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I'm one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner. And Eric, man, I don't even what's going on in the film room today. I'm gonna let you take the floor right now.
I'm gonna have a permagrin. I'm gonna have a permagrin all show today. It's going to be a fun show. You know, we have obviously some film, we have some advanced metrics, but we have also, Anthony, a very, very special guest.
Yes, as you folks know, here we go over a multitude of, positions, evaluation aspects, individual players, sides of the ball. For those of you who have been paying attention to the channel, the brand for a very long time, you know how much Eric loves the linebacker position and how much Eric enjoys the play of this particular linebacker. And so without further ado, we welcome to the show Buffalo Bills linebacker, fresh off of a brand new contract, very much well-deserved. Terrel Bernard joins us on the show. TB, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate the hell out of you. Welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys. Thank y'all for having me on.
Yeah, like we said, man, congrats on the contract. The numbers are great. We're happy you're here for the long-term future. But right off the bat, man, all of our fans are wondering, you got a new number too, not just a new contract number, but a new number. What went behind you changing numbers from 43 to 8?
Yeah, man, I was number 26 all through high school, was 26 at Baylor, and then we had a tradition where, certain guys got to get a single digit number, and that just meant, it meant something within the program. And I think when the opportunity came, I didn't have a opportunity, my first few years to get a single digit once I got to the league. But it's something that I've wanted for a while, and it's kind of just something personal that represents growth and a new aspect, a new chapter of my career. I think that's the main thing. And then also I'm a huge Kobe Bryant fan, so I think when 8 was available, I think that was just something that I wanted to do.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's good to hear. So we appreciate you joining us in the film room. As Anthony said, we're gonna have some fun here tonight. Let me start off with a film room question, man. When you watch film, where do your eyes go when you first start watching film? And maybe thinking about it from a perspective of someone that maybe is just starting out with watching film, and in that perspective, where do your eyes start? Where do you look? And I know as you've watched film over the years, and even for us, like the more you watch it, the more your process, you just go through it. So I know it's very difficult at times to verbalize, but what little things do you look at when you turn on the film to start watching film for your opponent?
Yeah, I think the first thing, starting out the weeks, like you said, it's a long process to kind of get to where I'm at now and, what I look for now. But I think initially for me, I try to just run through a few games and get a feel for what they want to do, their mentality, who they want to get the ball to. And then, once I go from there, I kind of get into more specifics. I go into formations and, down and distance and kind of have an idea of, after a P and 10 run, what's their second down pass game look like? If they're running the ball early on and they're not successful, do they get away from that? Do they stay with that? Formation tendencies and keys, and what formations are trying to tell us, how they're trying to hide them, and really what they want to get to in certain situations. Some teams, they love 3-by-1 on third down, and all the route concepts that come off of that. And I think I go from there, and then once I have a good feel of what they're trying to do and who they want to get the ball to and where they're trying to attack, you can break down into more specifics and have a better idea for one or two plays a game that can help you make a play here and there.
Right, and that's what's interesting, because the average fan probably just watches the game from beginning to end. But as a player, and even as analysts like us, we break it down into situations, because football games are a multitude of situations, as you said. Sure. Drive starters, 3rd and 10, 1st and 10, 2nd and 10 base concepts. So you break it down that way, right? Because you have to be efficient with your time when you're watching film.
Yeah, for sure. I think after Monday morning, I'm basically all into situations. Like I said, I'll watch a few games to start off the week, but after that, it goes either down in distance or by formation for me. That's where I spend most of my time. And then, once I get later into the week, I'll get more into, specifics of, okay, this player's here in this formation. That's an indicator for this route, or this is who they want to get the ball to in this formation. And, I think that helps me, be prepared for whenever I'm out there and I scan the formation, or I understand the situation. You have an idea of what's coming, because sometimes it can be too much. There's a lot going on, and you don't want to overload your brain or
Hmm.
what you're trying to get done. So I think I go into it with an idea of, if I get into a situation of 3rd and 5, I see a certain formation, then I know these are the top three concepts, or I know these are these are the guys they
Yeah.
want to get the ball to, and it helps me play a little bit faster and have a little advantage when I'm out there and I'm not just kind of guessing.
Right.
Mhm. And your position literally in the center of all the action, physically, mentally. There's so much going on. We've highlighted on the show a multitude of times plays that you've made physically, but also plays that you've made cerebrally because of how smart of a player you are. My question for you is, if you're building a linebacker from scratch, from the ground up, what's the most important skill set piece or trait, mentally or physically, that you're giving them? If you say he's a robot and you're uploading this most important skill set piece or trait, what is it?
Man, that's tough. I would
I know, I
say,
know. I wanted to see what you were going to say. I know
yeah,
it's
I
exciting.
would say, from my perspective, I would say the ability to recognize patterns.
Mm.
Ooh,
That's obviously, there's a baseline of like high speed, like that
yeah.
type of stuff that you have to have. But I think what separates people is the ability to recognize patterns. And that can be, like I was talking about earlier, formation tendencies. That can be, this guy's eyes. If he's looking a certain way, I know what that means or what that's telling me. That can mean, looking at an offensive line, if they're light, if they're heavy in their stance, looking at a quarterback, his tendencies. I think if you can recognize patterns and then implement that into, your job or the situation that's at hand, then, you're playing the game at a different level than everybody else.
I love that. Yeah.
Great answer. Great answer. So now, not just a linebacker position, but what are some things that you saw or you guys maybe talked about on defense when it came to trends across the league on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's just, from the top down, every team and how they're attacking on the offensive side of the ball, or specifically things that maybe you saw trend wise when it came to offenses attacking the Bills defense?
Yeah, man, it's interesting. I feel like we do such a good job of understanding how the game's going and where the game's, trending to, previously. I feel like a lot of the college game had like creeped into the NFL with the spread offenses and things like that, throwing the ball around the yard a little bit. And now it's kind of going back the other way where teams are getting a little heavier, more direct runs, and then play action off of that, and
Hmm.
Max Pro stuff just to protect the quarterback and give him a little bit more time. So I think that was a thing, especially this year, that you saw. A lot of teams start to transition into that, where they want to be a little bit more run focused and controlling the game, especially against us. If you go 3 and out, or you're turning the ball over and giving the ball back to Josh, then
Yeah.
you're in for a long day. So I think we look at it from our perspective, more so than like all the way around the league. I think teams really tried to play a ball control game against
Mm.
us, which you have the MVP. That's kind of what you have to do, but
Right.
that was something that we anticipated and kind of understood was going to be the trend this year.
One trend that we noticed on your side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, was how the opposing teams were attacking you with quick game. And that's not necessarily anything new because you guys, as we talk about a lot, are an attack oriented, up the field, penetrating style defense and try to heat up quarterbacks when they pass. But it
Yep.
seemed like, there were a lot of big moments in the season where the opposing offenses went to quick game to get the ball out of the hands and into the hands of their playmakers. Now, what are some things on the defensive side of the ball that you as a linebacker or Bobby Babich as a DC can do to minimize the quick game of the opposing offense?
Yeah, I think it goes back into situations. 1st and 10. You have to win. Like you have to win. If you give a NFL offense 2nd and 5 or less, like
Mm.
they're just going to be ahead of the sticks, ahead of the chains the whole game, and that's not really where you want to live. So for us, I think it turns into playing a little bit more man, a little bit more match coverage, and then like you
Yeah.
said, pressuring the quarterback, whether that's with 4 or with 5, and sometimes with 6, if we have to. But I think just making them feel uncomfortable, and that's part of what the quick game is, to make them stay comfortable and stay on track and to stay ahead of the chains. And,
Yeah,
for us, I think if we do a good job on first down, it kind of eliminates the possibility of quick game, second
that's a
and third
table.
down.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's kind of where, we saw a lot of that this year. I think that's where, we take the next step is, we win more first downs, and then we tighten it up in the back end a little bit, and then, it gives us a little bit more time up front to get to the quarterback.
You had us smiling ear to ear with that answer because so much of what we've talked about on the show this offseason was, just how we've kind of generally spoken about is just the Bills defense doing more things to kind of restrict or constrict the airspace, whether that means man, whether it means press, whether it means more match, like doing things to take away that leeway that offenses have the opportunity to. And then you parent it with that kind of early down, first down aspect and
Yep.
making sure they kind of stay off schedule while maintaining the on schedule aspect for the D. Yeah, that had us smiling from ear to ear. I got another question for you. Talking about trends and kind of piggybacking off of what you and Eric just spoke about, motion is something that we've seen creep into every offense in a multitude of ways: run game, pass game, leverage stuff, misdirection, eye candy, or tying it into different layers and concepts to change the picture for offenses. Is there a specific aspect of motion that you think gives defenses the most trouble today in the NFL? Like it could be the speed of it or the timing with the snap, or if it's tied to certain run concepts or out of certain looks. Is there any, again, specific aspect of motion that you think gives defenses the most trouble?
Yeah, I would say probably the speed of the motion, because sometimes, in our system, how we handle motion is determined by the speed of the receiver. If it's a jet motion, or if it's we call it a reset, where he's going across and then setting back up and it's
Right.
creating a new
Sure.
formation. So I think that's an area. I think, Miami does a really good job with motion. Anybody coming from that
Yeah.
tree, Miami, San
Yeah,
Francisco, those guys, they do a really good job. We played a lot of teams that motion are real motion heavy, and you have to be. I think the thing that's so tough is everybody has to be on the same page, and it happens so fast that you've got to see it the same way, and you've got to understand, like, okay, if we see this as a jet motion, everybody sees it as a jet motion, and what's our adjustment off of that?
Right.
And that's honestly where we spend a lot of our time, together, especially as a back seven, watching certain games and cut ups of watching the motions, and how they're doing it, just to see how we handle it and how we see it, just so we're all on the same page. Because there's instances where the whole coverage will change, your run fits will change, everything revolving around the defensive call will change based on emotion, and offenses know that, which is why they do it.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's a challenge, to be able
Chess match,
to.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun. That's a tough part of the game, but I feel like we have a good system that we can categorize each one, and everybody understands where their job is.
I love that response of, how the speed and tempo of that motion really determines a lot. And that's a great point, because sometimes, as we'll see in some of this film, sometimes that eye candy, that jet action across the field is really just to get you guys that have to adjust on the
For
snap,
sure.
not necessarily to get into a certain pass concept. So a lot of times it's just testing your run gap integrity post snap, because obviously with a one gap system like you guys run, that little motion, that little shift can change responsibilities, not just in the pass game, but also in the run game.
For sure.
All right, Anthony, Terrell, you ready to get into some film here?
Let's do it.
I
All right.
guess.
All right. So we got 4 plays here, guys. This is a first play from the Broncos game, and this is one of those plays that really is, I'm sure for us it did. It started in the film room. It started with film study, and Marvin Mims, wide receiver, in the backfield. And a lot of times going into a game, Terrell, talk to us about how there are certain checks and alerts. Hey, this guy's in this position or at this alignment. You're either starring him, like you guys used to do with Tyreek Hill a bunch,
Yep.
but you see Mims in the backfield. From our study, we knew, I'm sure you did as well, that really spoke to a certain percentage of plays or certain plays that the Broncos ran.
Yeah, no, exactly. You hit it. I think you see Sewell back there pointed out first.
Yeah.
And then, we understood that, in this formation, or typically a traditional 4-by-1 formation, they were a heavy, heavy screen team.
Yes.
And, the situation matched up. I think it was second and medium, trying to get an early, or easy first down, or, a short third down. But, Sewell did a good job of pointing it out. We made an adjustment on the back end with Matt to take care of the front.
Mm-hmm.
And then me and Taryn and CB, I think is up top,
Yep.
we talked and basically put ourselves in man. So we're basically playing 2 man up top instead
Wow.
of traditional quarters like we were initially going to be playing. So
Awesome.
that allows me off this motion to really go and attach and take this receiver, and it kind of takes out the screen game. And that was an adjustment that we had made early on in the week, and something that we had talked about. So you see T giving a signal right there.
Yep.
To the safety, and then once we realized the formation with obviously Mims in the backfield, we adjust the coverage, so it goes pretty quick. We slide the front over
Mm-hmm.
because we know the run strength is obviously going to the opposite side, and then you'll see Taryn, right there, we switch
Right
it, we
there.
switch the call. Yep.
I love it.
So we switch it to 2 man basically on this side. Still
Yep.
playing quarters up top. And then once he jets across, I'm basically taking him as my man.
So he's the number 3 and your guy coming that side, obviously.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
I feel like this play, Terrell, off the last question I asked you in regards to the motion, one of the pieces you talked about was just making the defense having to be on the same page. And I feel like this play is there's so many good examples of it, but the level of communication here, like you mentioned, Sewell calling out, and you see Rapp communicating with Rasul. Obviously, you're doing your air traffic controller stuff. You've got Milano communicating, Hamlin, Taryn, like everybody within an instant communicating, recognizing everything. How is that really instilled in you guys? Because even when you guys have had injuries on the defensive side of the ball, you see a lot of like the second guys, the third guys that are coming in. You're still seeing levels of communication and recognition. How is that built within the defense? Is it purely from rapport or repetitions, or something specifically like you guys do? Because you're such a well communicated on the same page type of defense pre-snap with all this stuff going on.
Yeah, I think it starts honestly with Bobby and Coach McDermott. They do a great job of forcing us to communicate and over communicate during, walkthroughs, OTAs, training camp, preseason, all the way up to the season. We do so much communication just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we're all seeing it the same way. And, it comes to life. And I think, it puts other people at ease when, I'm saying something or Matt's saying something, or, you have Taryn in there talking, you got both the safeties back there communicating. I think it eases everybody, and everybody knows that we're all on the same page, and we're getting our jobs done. And I think that's where that part just comes in, and allows us to play so much faster, because you're not second guessing, and you're not hesitating, because I know what I'm doing, you know what you're doing, and everybody's kind of accountable for their job.
And what fans need to realize too is that you guys are on defense here at home in a playoff game. So you could barely hear anything. So
100%.
That's why you see so much communication, verbal and nonverbal, hand signals and whatnot prior to the snap, and how important, as Terrell said, that you have to be on the same page. And then not just, what you're seeing on the field, but also just even the communication signals and all the different checks that maybe you guys installed in the game plan. Like that is all happening on the field when, you have thousands and thousands of Bills Mafia going nuts, and that crowd is in a ruckus at this moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's another thing that we practice is the hand signals, because like you said, at home, it's like that's toughest for us, honestly. You
Yeah.
can't hear anything. So we have signals for every piece of communication that we need to make, and we all study the same stuff, and that goes into the meetings that we have together, just as the players, creating certain signals and changing it up week to week, just so we know what we're talking about, and we don't put the same thing on tape too many times.
Absolutely. Now we're going to flash back to week 1 and talk about some of the pre to post snap processing in the run game. You mentioned the motion earlier in this episode and how that motion can change things in the run and pass game. This is from the Cardinals. They have basically a split zone type run called. And so I want you to walk us through the stuff from pre to post snap. Again, maybe what you saw in film during the week, maybe how offenses typically like to attack you, specifically with the alignment. And you talked about formations and how important that is to study prior to a game. The alignment of this tight end right here, sometimes called a sniffer, sometimes just an offline tight end, because in many ways that can unlock where the play is going or what type of concept you're going to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think they started out, FIB here. They're in a 2-by-2 set. So we know, teams that start out FIB, they're not typically staying.
Formation into the boundary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The passing strength is into the boundary, and we know they're typically not gonna stay that way. So we know emotion's probably coming. And like you said, man, it's a lot of it is just eye candy. They know that we have certain gaps and certain responsibilities, so they try to get you to move, and then they try to hide the tight end, and create a new gap with him coming across the line. But like I said, man, Bobby and Coach McDermott do such a good job of communicating, the formations and threats by formation. And this is a common run and a common theme that offenses have been running for a long time. The Cardinals did a good job of kind of trying to hide him in there where he looks a little bit tighter, and not, we call it a highway position, not as much in a relay where he's gonna possibly go back. But anytime we get a tight end in a position like this, we want to point it out, and you see me and Dorian and Taryn
Yeah.
all pointing at it. So once we get our run pass keys and we see him coming back across, our gaps change. So I'm initially going from a solo A gap player to off this jet, or a solo B gap player off the jet, bump into the A gap, and then once the tight end hawks back across and relays, then it changes my gap back to the B gap. And I think another thing is understanding the blocking scheme. So they're going heavy on the doubles, and you got to know who's coming off on you, and you got to
Right.
know who's blocking you. And so I know those two are responsible for me. So if I stayed in this A gap, I know the center's probably coming off, and then if I go to the B gap, 76 is probably supposed to come off. So luckily, we got him a little confused and was able to get all the way around there, and ended up dipping under it and getting in on a tackle.
Yeah, you trigger so fast that when that center comes off, you're already kind of half a step by him already. And like you said, it's just kind of a dip and rip through that shoulder. Talk about, I guess, since this being like kind of that split full run, but gap scheme runs are becoming more in vogue nowadays, like kind of shifting a bit away from more zone runs. Just talk about that, whether it's, traditional gap scheme runs like power and counter and all that kind of stuff, or if it's, split zone, whatever, just the idea of changing gaps, adding and removing on each side, and what that, you spoke on it a little here with, what you were initially as, what gap you were in, then you got bumped over and then you're moving to
Mhm.
another. Just talk about that coordinated dance. Cause I feel like that's a big thing that I feel like a lot of the casual fan don't understand how scientific run
For
fits
sure.
are and what changing gaps on the front and backside can do.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's that's one of the toughest things that we have to do, is to understand, how to fit every single run out of every single defense. And this one's a little bit more simple because you're just changing one gap. You're
Yes.
bumping, for me, I'm bumping from the B gap to the A gap and then back to the B gap. But if this was counter, to say, it'll change two gaps. So if this guard was to pull with 85 coming back across,
Yeah.
that would change completely everything that I have and everything that Dorian's doing, where Taryn has to fit. So you gotta be able to key really fast and anticipate, and then once your keys tell you what to do, you gotta play fast and trigger. And um, like this is what's so good about Taryn too, is he's obviously elite in the passing game, but I don't know if he gets enough credit for how good he is in the run game as well.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Yes.
He is one of the best nickels in the run game, in my opinion. He does everything well. He knows all the run schemes. He knows all the formation tendencies, and where to fit. Pretty much every time any run is
How
handed
the
to him.
leverage of blocks like there
Exactly.
from
So you
Wilson, that
see,
block
he
leverage.
gets yeah he gets cracked a lot just from the outside, because he's kind of the free hitter a lot of the time. So they'll use the receiver or a tight end to
Mhm.
crack him, and he's been doing it for a long time. So he knows when that's coming, and who's supposed to block him. So he's elite, to say the least.
That's a great setup because a very similar play here from the Niners. But I want you to talk about on this one, not just your play, but everyone's 111th, and how the Niners they're running a similar type play, but it really more unfolds kind of like Anthony was talking about, more like a gap run, because you have that tight end coming across the formation, but you have Huschek also coming across the formation quickly, but also the change in the alignment. You have the quarterback Purdy, in the on the dot with the running back behind him in a pistol look, and how
Yep.
that maybe can change things, maybe from a run fit perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, they're starting out in a 3-by-1 look. I think we're in we're in a traditional cover three look here with T-Rap coming down. So I'm playing the C gap. Matt's initially in the A gap, and then you got T-Rap coming down in the B gap. The fullback jets across, which is going to change our alignments initially and our gap responsibility. But like I said, 85 still Kittle here. He's still in that relay look. So our keys are technically still on him. So you can see, T-Rap's looking there, Matt's looking there, I'm
Yeah.
looking there. And once he moves and I see it's run, you trigger and get to the next gap. So I'm solo A going down to solo B, and like I said, you got to know who's coming to block you. So I think that's the center. He's checking for movement by Ed because we run a lot of strong side pressure.
Yes.
So instead of staying heavier on the doubles, they're singling and then checking for movement and then trying to climb up. And luckily for us, it works out to where I'm moving the opposite direction of where he's checking. So I can try to get to beat him to the spot and kind of rip underneath his block and kind of beat him, like I said, to the spot. But you see Taryn coming all the way from the outside again too, to replace that B gap,
Hmm.
and it kind of puts the back in a bind. He doesn't
Not
really
many
have
nickels
anywhere to
have to do
go.
that either, right?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. He does a great job. And then you see, I think that's Ed right there at the three tech,
Hmm.
taking his guy, knocking him back. You see Greg taking on two. And this is really just a good run fit all the way across the board. Guys doing their 111th and, fitting the gaps. And, when we're gapped out like that, there's nowhere really to run.
Yeah, and that's so important with again, to tie it back, I think, to when people are kind of just watching on Sundays. I think so much of it, people just think, oh, well, your responsibility for any player is on the run, go make the tackle. And it's not necessarily that. You have to be in your gap. You have to have your responsibility, because what one player, two, three, our guys are making plays off of what you are doing, and you have to be
For
sound
sure.
and responsible in your assignment. I love you highlighting that. I have a question too, just on, obviously use check being that one of the two kind of motion men here, but coming across, how does, and this is obviously tied to, film study and what you're preparing for with San Francisco that week, but how does the body type or the specific player that's in motion kind of change anything for you as far as keys or reads? For example, if it's San Francisco, say everybody was healthy, like, use check going in that motion versus Debo or versus Juwan Jennings or something like that.
Ricard for the Ravens.
Oh
Yep,
yeah,
Big
for
Pat
difference.
sure.
Ricard doing it for the Ravens. Yeah,
Yes.
talk about how, like, that it's not just the motion itself, but also how, like, the body type or the type of player ties into what you could be anticipating or reading.
Yeah, for sure. I think those are two great examples. Specifically with San Francisco here. In certain instances, if it's a wide receiver body, a lot of the times we won't move because the technical run strength isn't changing. So your run responsibility could stay the same if it's somebody we deem not changing the run strength technically. As opposed to here, this is Juszczyk, which is he's their fullback,
Yeah.
obviously changing the run strength and the hitting point a little bit. So like you hit on, you bump and change gaps with guys like that. And, similarly to the Ravens, they have Ricard and, some of their other tight ends are more, run blocking tight ends as opposed to, Likely and Andrews are more pass catching tight ends.
Yeah.
So all of that changes. You go throughout the week of, okay, is this guy considered a clone, which is a fullback or tight end, or are we considering him as a pass catching receiver? And that'll determine if we're changing gaps, if our pass responsibility changes, if our run gaps are changing, and that's where we spend a lot of our time is understanding the position and the body of what the offense is trying to get done.
Awesome stuff. I love the details in that, whether it was the motion in the beginning and the
Mhm.
pacing to the motion, but also
Yep,
the body types. And obviously it's also game plan specific too. As you said, specific teams have certain players that execute certain roles. And so again, film study becomes incredibly important, as does,
for
as
sure.
you've mentioned, Babbage and the staff. It really trickles down from them. So the pro personnel and pro scouting department to the coaching staff and all the way down, top to bottom, a lot of different parts have to play into what happens on a specific play, just
For
like you
sure.
saw in that Niners game. So moving on to more of the passing game, and probably one of our favorite plays from last year, your interception against the Texans. I want you to walk us through, again, scheme, technique, assignment, what you saw on film to rob Stroud of this play here. Just really, really good play, really heady interception right in front of Diggs against the Texans.
Yeah, man. So it kind of goes back initially starting off, what we had talked about with the motions. I think this is Tank Dell initially motioning across the formation and then returning back. So we don't change our alignments. We don't change which gaps we have initially. We're in a quarters look right here, split safety quarters look. They're under center, which would typically tell you, it's a heavier run formation with this tight end, especially in the core. Reduced formation. This could be possible toss crack, outside zone, split zone, like you saw with the 49ers.
Yeah.
But specifically with the Texans, is what we've seen is they were running a lot of dig routes and clearing out guys to hit the dig route behind you. And it's something that we had talked about on the sideline and something that we had seen really all week, trying to prepare for. And just right here, we're in a quarters look. So I'm carrying the number 3 tight end up the seam right now, basically in man. Once I feel this running back, create the 4 strong look, I
Right.
know I have Dorian in my hip pocket basically. So I know he's going to overtake this seam route by the tight end, and formation awareness, like we talked about earlier. You got Diggs at the number 2 receiver. Um, Obviously their top target guy. I think Nico got hurt
Injured.
this game early
Mhm.
on, so he's obviously their number 1 guy right now in this set. And you kind of see I can look through the tight end, and I'm guarding the tight end right now, but I'm looking through the tight end and I can see Diggs, settling up and getting ready to hit this dig
Yeah.
route. So once I feel Dorian kind of in my hip pocket, I let the tight end go and try to undercut this route. And you feel the space and the timing of it all. You can kind of anticipate the ball is about to be thrown. So right when I snap my head around, I'm trying to just find the ball. Not really worried about where Steph's at right now, just trying to get in that window and hopefully, get one. And, he ended up throwing it. So, ended up being in the right spot.
And what I find interesting about this, guys, too, is, the Patriots used to run this play a bunch. So you get
Yep.
the pull right here, and they would hit Gronk on this
Yeah.
crosser. And
Hmm.
so I think that is, coming from that Patriots tree over there in Houston. But they want you, you run the pass. They want you to really come up, and they would
For
sneak the
sure.
tight end behind you. But you did a great job at attaching to that tight end. But again, this is what's great about zone coverages, and this is literally the epitome of why zone can be so so crucial in these type of situations, where you took away, in my opinion, one of the first options, that crossing route by Schultz. But then the number 2, you also took that away. That's why this play is so fantastic.
Yeah, this is what we would call it's called counter pass. Technically, they're running a counter action, making it look like it's a run.
Yeah.
But you can feel the offensive line's a little
Yeah,
soft in protection. So
yeah,
me and Dorian don't really step up too much. And then like you said, I see this tight end coming across. So I'm really locked into him. I see off the counter action, I already know it's 4 strong, so I already know the back's to me. So once
Mhm.
I feel Dorian and he's yelling at me right here that he's there for me, I can pass him off. And like right there, you can see my eyes are already on my next threat, which is going to be this dig route coming from Steph.
This play is such another good example of, again, like the mental side of it, of football and that chess match. And for you in particular, again, even just starting like what you highlighted there with the offensive line, you kind of see like hi hats initially. So like, okay, it's a little softer, like seeing the play action. They pull that guard for the flash of color, but still in pass pro. You're acknowledging what Tank Dell was doing. And then also just, again, tying it into tendency, like, and you mentioned Nico Collins being out. So much of Stroud and Nico Collins is in breakers,
Yep,
in
for
breakers of
sure.
some kind. And then even without him, like you noted, that offense loves to live in between the numbers. And
Yep.
so there's so many things coming together. Like for this one play to happen, it takes the film study, the knowledge, the tendency knowledge, the keying, diagnosing here, but then also the support from Dorian, him seeing that on the same page as you. It just highlights that chess piece and how as physical and as violent as football is, so much of it is mental and so much of it is scientific. And so much of that is what made you successful on this play.
Yeah, man. Like you said, it's so much of a mental game and understanding tendencies and kind of what offenses want to do to attack you. And like you said, without Dorian there, I'm probably still running with the tight end if I don't hear him.
Okay, boom.
And
So that was my next question. If you don't hear that, are you staying with Schultz as he goes across?
Yeah, if I don't hear Dorian with me, saying push with the running back coming to my side,
Mm,
I'm technically responsible for the tight end. So,
mhm.
having him, see it the same way and push me off of that guy, it allows me, to kind of rope it up into that next window.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and the whole push call, it's something we've broken down several times.
Yeah.
So that
Hmm.
that
Going back to your
actually
tape at Baylor too, that was one of the
yes.
things we
Yep.
highlighted. Yeah.
Yes, and what he means by push is the running back after the run action, he actually, as he talked about, kind of goes into a 4-by-1 set, 3 receivers out wide, and then the running back becomes a 4th guy. So Dorian pushed him and let Bernard know, hey, the running back's going to your side, push out to the next available target in your zone.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Oh man, so many moving pieces.
I know.
It's like a chain reaction or like a dot. And but again, that goes to the like if somebody's off, if someone's not doing similar to kind of what we talked about from a run fit perspective, if somebody's off in their 111th, there's that communication breakdown that creates a void. And that's obviously what offenses are trying to do to defenses. But I think that's also what, again, from how the fans are watching on Sundays, I think that's how a lot of times in the pass game, someone gets open and a completion happens and they see the guy nearest to them. And they're like, oh, well, that guy got burned. It's like, nah, that's not necessarily how it
For
works. Like
sure.
there's so many layers to responsibility,
Yeah.
assignment, and then how it's all packaged together with formation tendency and then the pre to post snap change. Oh man, good stuff.
Before we get you out of here, TB, let me ask you a couple of quick, one-hitter questions. You've admitted some of the issues that you had this season. You're very honest, self-reflective about it. So what are some things that you're working on this offseason, whether it's physically, mentally, to get your game to another level, a level that we haven't seen as Bills fans?
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to doing my job first, and then setting other people up in position to make plays. I feel like early on in the season, I was trying to do too much, and trying to play outside of myself, and do just too much. And I think I got more comfortable as the year went on. Obviously, dealt with some injuries and stuff here and there, but I feel like I got a lot more comfortable as the season went on with my job and my responsibility and what the team and the defense needed from me. And I'm looking to build on that. I think, taking my game to the next level, in the passing game, I think more so just communication, pre and post snap, that's always something that's going to be huge just for my position. And then in the run game, I think, getting back to using my hands like I had previously. I think there were certain
Yeah.
instances where, I was using a shoulder or not really, physically using my hands as much as I could have. And, I feel like when I do that, I play so much better. So I know that's another spot that I want to work on. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to get back to work and to get there and start working on these things. You get a whole off season to kind of watch yourself from the last year and find things that you want to fine tune and get better at, and areas that you can make more plays and do a little bit more. And I think that's what's exciting for me. I get an opportunity to really study myself and study other guys around the league, and then try to put it into practice.
You talked about your use of hands and how important that is to get back to that. Now, one thing that I always like harp on social media is that linebackers nowadays are different. It's not a stack and shed thumper league anymore. And the
Yeah.
ability to beat blocks, there are a multitude of ways to do that. So can you talk about, the different ways that linebackers such as yourself avoid blocks, escape from blocks, use your hands to stack and shed, like the different ways that you can win as a linebacker versus an offensive lineman?
Yeah, there's a ton of ways. We work on a ton of things. I think, obviously the first way is to, put your hands in somebody's chest and get them off of you. That's kind of more of the old school, downhill thumper type, which, you have to do it sometimes. And that's, you just have to. But I think something that works for me a lot is I try to set up guys to where, they don't really know where I'm going until I decide. And, when I do that, I feel like it's almost, really similar to a pass rush in a sense. You use your hips to get out of the way and swipe, or you saw it on, I think, the San Francisco clip, dipping and ripping and just
Yeah.
trying to get their hands off you. um, because at the end of the day, those guys are 100 pounds heavier than me and obviously a lot
Right.
stronger. But there's certain ways that I've figured out throughout my career as being a smaller linebacker, of ways I can avoid blocks. And then when the time comes, you got to put your hands on somebody too. So I think having the ability to do both is what makes either one of those successful, because they don't really know what to expect. And, that's how I look at it. And I know, that's what they coach us. When you can avoid it and make the play, do it. And then when you have to, get in there and kind of nut up a little bit, you got to do that too.
Love it.
Yeah, you still got to be able to live in both worlds to some
Exactly.
degree, with obviously playing to, the needs of every individual specific play. Last question for you. Talked so much about film and film study and all this stuff. How many, if you want to quantify it, daily or weekly, how many hours a day or hours a week in season do you think you spend watching tape?
Oh man. Oh gosh, I would say I would probably break it down daily. Daily, I'd probably say, are you including meetings or you include just
No,
my
on your
personal
own.
time?
On your
Yeah, on
On
own.
your
my
own.
Yeah.
own? Okay.
Yeah.
On my own, probably maybe 3.5, 4 hours a day. Just
People don't
going
realize
through
that.
going through certain things. Yeah. It's, there's everything that you can imagine to watch is available to watch. And, it gets to a point where, there's too much information. But for me, I like to be able to see everything. And
Yeah.
once I see everything, then I can kind of break it down in my mind of what I need to take from it. But yeah, it's a few hours a day. I think, you leave the meeting room and get your treatment and stuff, and then, you go in there and grind out a little bit with some of the guys. And then, once you get home, for me, I get my specific things that I need to watch or that I feel like I need to watch. And, I think Al does a great job, the linebackers coach. He does a great job of, creating files and folders for us that, pertain to the linebackers specifically. So, that's kind of where I
That's
live.
huge.
In there, and he does, like I said, he does a great job of giving us things that, are going to help us throughout the game. So, yeah, I would say a few hours a day, man. It's fun though. There's nothing like being able to watch football and,
Yeah.
study it. And, I think the biggest thing is once you're able to watch something and understand what's happening and then go and make a play in the game, that just makes it, that much more fun to go and do it for the next week.
Yeah, from the moment I saw a picture of you walking into the game with your notebook and iPad, I knew you were the guy to have on this show. I just knew it.
He calls it
That's
out
hilarious.
every time. Every Sunday when they do the whole, when the Bills social media or the
Yeah,
beat
yeah,
reporters,
yeah,
whoever,
yeah.
do their whole, and they show Allen coming in doing his finger guns, or Mac Hollins doing whatever he was doing.
Exactly.
Every week he calls out there's Bernard's iPad. Or you
Yep.
can see it right
That
there with
is
this.
I knew
Every week.
hilarious,
from that
man.
moment on years ago, I was like, this guy is going to be perfect in the film room one day.
That is hilarious. Yeah, actually, it's funny because I keep my iPad and my notebook with me just because I like to review certain things. Once I get into the locker room, I'll watch a cut up that I wanted to watch throughout the week, or I'll go back and look at some of my notes that I took Monday, at 2 p.m. Just something that'll click back and, help me remember something before I go out there. But it's funny you guys caught that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, every week, man. Yeah, hell yeah. This has been tremendously awesome
Yeah.
for us. And like we said off air, like we said to start, we sincerely appreciate you taking the time to join us and giving us a little peek behind the curtain and into your mind of how you play the game, what this defense looks like, what football is like. You were awesome in every way, shape, and form. We appreciate the hell out of you, and we wish you the best upcoming in this offseason and this full season, and hopefully we get to speak to you again at some point. But we appreciate the time you took. Thank you very much for sitting down with us today.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate you guys. Y'all do a great job. Like I said, I don't get to see everything, but I like watching what y'all do, and the breakdowns that you have. Y'all are special. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, TB. That means a lot. Thank you very much, man.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Have a
take
good
care.
one.
See you.
Later.
Just awesome stuff, man. I mean, I'm not kidding. Ant, as soon as we saw that picture of him walking into the stadium, with his notepad and his iPad, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. Because obviously it was also during a time when we had a lot of the Edmonds, discussions and like Terrel Bernard and the differences between those two guys and how they win. As he talked about, guys win in different ways and guys have different strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like this staff, obviously they've committed to him long-term. Yeah. This is what they've been looking for. They've been looking for someone that can win in multiple ways, but primarily, as you guys can tell now, from the shoulders up. That is something that we've talked about from day one with Terrel Bernard. and you got to see it firsthand.
Yeah, and this isn't to, I hate bringing up his name twice after you just brought it up, but so this isn't to knock Tremaine Edmonds mentally, and this isn't to knock Terrel Bernard physically, but so much of what we talked about, like you said, from the jump, from watching Bernard's tape at Baylor, so much of what we talked about was how pro-ready he was from the neck up, coming from that Aranda system, and then I pulled it up from earlier, the quote right in that rookie camp from Leslie Frazier, speaking on Terrel Bernard, he's one of those guys who can take the classroom to the grass, end quote. He's just
the epitome of it. This film room, literally epitome of that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And that makes a huge difference. Like all the air traffic controller stuff, like it's kind of funny that we label it that, but that's what he is, and a lot goes into it. And you hear coaches now even talking about linebackers coming from college and how. And different analysts are talking about the lack of like pro-ready stuff from the mental side and how much has to be taught and how that's delaying linebacker development or delaying where you want to take a linebacker. And again, this isn't to knock Bernard in any other way or any other linebacker in any way, but what he does, he's so cerebral and he's so smart, and so much of what he does being in the right position, be playing with the right leverage, whether it's in coverage or against the run, it's because of how he sees the game, how he prepares, how he studies it. And I mean, yeah, if you know where the play is going before it's going there, you don't have to run a 4-2 or a 4-3. You can get out before anybody else has a chance.
You don't have to be big. You don't have to have long arms. Again, pre to post snap processing, as you saw, whether it's in the run or the pass game, it starts with film study. It starts with taking it from the meeting rooms to the field. And he walked you through exactly what he saw on film in the game during the week, and then how it translated and showed up production-wise on the field. And as you said, that's got to be super rewarding when you talk about the value of the time you put in, the 3.5 to 4 hours of film outside of being at one Bills drive on your own to make plays on the field.
Yeah, that ability to have your hard work pay off and reward you in those moments. And he's done it since he started coming into the league. Like we've highlighted it year after year, him making these good plays, big plays, high leverage moment plays. And, again, all of it tied to what he's talked about in this episode and how this went through. This was another treat. And I know how excited you were. I knew when you were, I was going to say, like, normally I'm more of the like emotional one, but I saw you cracking a ton of smiles in this one. I was like, he's liking it. He's enjoying it.
That was fantastic. It was one of my favorites. Again, because of the position he plays, but also the heady,
the way he plays the game.
The football IQ. And again, as fans, not just of the Bills, but as fans of the game, there aren't many opportunities for us to see how smart these players are. We see the production, we see the results, but we don't see the why behind it. And he was one of the best when it came to translating and dictating it to us, the fans, what he saw and what went into the play.
Yeah, this was a huge treat. For us here, we hope for you folks as well watching it. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please drop a like here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the audio platforms, that's awesome as well. Please rate and review and subscribe there. Turn on notifications for the Cover One Film Room playlist here on YouTube. Subscribe to the Cover One channel with the multitude of Bills and football content we have for you pretty much every single day of the week, especially in season. Tell your family, friends, loved ones, anybody who you think is a football fan or a Bills fan, or maybe, a fan of another team. You just want to rub it in their face of how awesome Terrel Bernard is and his nice contract extension or whatever you got. We tremendously appreciate, the word of mouth that has helped us to grow where we are. Whatever form or fashion your support comes in, we greatly appreciate it and appreciate you folks. Eric, anything else for the fine folks before we say goodbye?
No, thanks for joining us tonight. Make sure that you like, comment, let us know who else you want us to get on. I'm not scared to take shots. I'll try to get anyone on the show, especially when it comes to breaking down the film. If they can do what Terrell did in the show tonight, like, I'm all for having everyone on. I asked on a post on the YouTube channel who a lot of you guys would like to see us break down film with, and a lot of the answers were Terrel Bernard. So you guys got a little surprise tonight, for this show. But thanks for everyone, for tuning in and for always supporting us. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without you guys.
Yeah, the support means everything. And we say it every week, but it means everything. It means more than you know. So thank you all for that. And again, thank you to Terrel Bernard for taking time to join us and going behind the scenes a little bit. And for anything going forward, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, Get at us on social. You can find Eric running the Cover One handle. That's at Cover and the number one. So at Cover One. His individual is at Eric J. Turner. You can find the Cover One film room handle.
I'm just gonna put a banner up so that I can just hit it and it just the ticker on the bottom.
Just let it run.
Too many accounts.
You get at me at pro__ant. Or if you don't have those, leave a comment for us on YouTube, or if you're in the Discord, put it in one of the multitude of channels we have there, whether it's the Bills channel, the film channel. If you've got certain prospects you want us to take a look at, have a discussion about, put that into the college football channel, the film channel, or leave a comment here on YouTube. Whatever you folks are clamoring for, we will try our best to accommodate and get to. Again, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Cover One Film Room. And until we see you next time, this has done it for us here in this another special edition of the Cover One Film Room with Bills linebacker Terrel Bernard. I'm Anthony Prohaska. That's Eric Turner. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We'll see you when we see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.